Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
And I'm wife.
Together we're reading the Bible for the very first time.
We grew up without religion and wanted to know what all the fuss was about.
Well, what have we learned so far?
That God is a dick, and apparently some people believe in talking donkeys?
We're not trying to pass ourselves off as experts.
Nope, we're just reading the Bible for the first time and giving our first take reaction.
If you'd like to join us in this venture, you might consider starting at episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in wherever you like.
All right, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah, let's get to it. Husband!
Wife!
Do you know what we are doing today?
We are on a Saturday here,
Mm-hmm.
which normally means that we're going to be doing a...
Q&A Saturday.
That's right. And what are we Qing and Aing today?
Today we are covering the 4 chapters that we did this week instead of 5.
Why was that?
Because I was sick.
Why were you sick?
I guess I didn't pray hard enough or something.
I don't know. You got better, so you must have done something right.
I mean, better is like...
You're not as bad as you were.
I'm not as bad as I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I took a home COVID test and it came back negative.
Right.
And I protest that, honestly. I feel like what I have is COVID.
Right.
But
right.
anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, we are covering Isaiah chapters 35 through 38.
All right. You ready to do this?
I am. Are you?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okey-dokey. Okay, so here we are jumping into our Q&A for chapters 35 through 38 of Isaiah.
Okay.
Before we do that, I did want to reiterate that the book of Isaiah is divided into 2 main parts.
Right.
And we are approaching the end of that first part. As a matter of fact, if I hadn't gotten sick,
We'd have finished it?
we would have finished it.
Oh,
Do you know how much that pains me?
Probably a lot, I'm sure.
The
Yeah.
way that the book is split, first Isaiah is chapters 1 through 39.
Oh.
Yeah.
And we could have ended the week with 39.
I know.
But
I
you
know.
got sick.
I did. I know.
All right, well.
And then, of course, second Isaiah, which is the second half of the book of Isaiah, is
Right.
chapters 40 through 66.
Okay. All right.
So we have noticed that first Isaiah is primarily concerned with the judgment and salvation of the kingdom of Judah.
Right.
And Isaiah condemns the people of Judah for their idolatry, injustice, and hypocrisy.
Right.
And he warns them that God's judgment is coming, but he also promises that a remnant of faithful people will be saved.
Right.
So that's what this whole thing has been about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to, like I said, put that out there.
Yep.
That's what we're up to.
Okay.
I don't know if you recall in chapter 35, in verse 1b through 2a, it said, like the crocus, it will burst into bloom.
Right.
And I said that it's usually translated as a rose.
Sure.
But the other 2 flowers, and I couldn't remember one of them, it was the lily or the jonquil.
Jonquil.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember you saying that at some point in the past.
Yeah.
But
That's because this was something that was already said
Right,
before
right.
in, I think, Psalms somewhere.
Okay.
But that is the flower that I was trying to recall.
Okay.
So I just find it interesting because a crocus and a rose and a lily are nothing alike. And I don't know what a jonquil looks like, but I wonder if it resembles any of them.
Right. Yeah.
So basically a fucking flower, and we have no idea which one.
Yeah. So it's a flower.
It's a flower.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to say about 35. Chapter 36, we have some really interesting stuff happen.
Okay. Yeah.
So, chapter 36 was about the invasion of Sennacherib. This chapter describes the invasion of the Assyrian king Sennacherib to the kingdom of Judah under Hezekiah.
Right.
Okay. Officials from King Hezekiah's government meet Rabshakeh, the general of the armies of Assyria. Okay. And in verse 1 it says, now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defenced cities of Judah and took them.
Right.
Okay. Now, based on the Assyrian king Sennacherib's annals, which I will speak of in just a moment, which are found inscribed on a number of artifacts containing the record of the same event, The time referred to here can be determined as 701 BCE.
Okay.
So now, what the fuck are Sennacherib's annals, right?
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
They're actual things that exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The annals themselves are notable for describing Sennacherib's siege of Jerusalem during the reign of King Hezekiah.
Okay.
This event is recorded in several books contained in the Bible, including Isaiah chapters 36 and 37, 2 Kings chapter 18, and 2 Chronicles chapter 32. The invasion is mentioned by Herodotus outside of the Bible, who does not refer to Judea and says the invasion ended at Pelusium on the edge of the Nile Delta.
Okay.
So there are actual artifacts.
So it's a historical event.
Yeah.
It actually happened, which I questioned, so I was wrong, because I don't know which ones to believe and which ones not to believe.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
I found that so interesting, the historical part of it.
Did you find that it said anything interesting about, like, did they mention 185,000 people dying at the hand of God on those tablets?
No, I did not go in any further into what the annals are, because we'd have to actually read books for that.
Right.
So, which I did not do.
So what we're doing here is giving people the link.
highlights.
Here's the hyperlink to go check that out.
Yeah,
go check that out.
Here's a thing that exists that you might find interesting, because I did. Right. Not interesting enough that I want to go like read books on it, but just to know it's there. Yeah. You know, that's cool.
Yeah, no, that intrigues me very much, and you know me, because I love history.
I know, that's why.
Now I might do some more research into that myself.
Yeah,
actually.
I could not wait to tell you about Sennacherib's annals.
No, I'm very, very interested. Yeah.
So it should be noted here that the text in Isaiah 36 chapter 36 verse 1 omits the admission of defeat and the payment for substantial reparations by Hezekiah to Sennacherib, which is recorded in 2 Kings chapter 18.
Oh, yeah.
So,
okay.
I always like when I...
You had remembered that. I didn't remember that one. Like, you had said something about that either during the podcast or when we were talking amongst ourselves. I can't remember which, but you had mentioned that to me at some point, either, like I said, in the podcast or not, but...
Well, I always, when I see it come up a way that it has been mentioned, like the event has been mentioned before, but here's how it differs, that's the part that interests me. Yeah. So the fact that they're like, yes, we did talk about this in 2 Kings, however, this is how it differs. Right. So I just like that kind of stuff. So moving on, still in the same chapter, Rabshakeh speaks against Judah's trust in an alliance with Egypt. One of the great battles for Hezekiah during this time was the temptation to make a defensive alliance with Egypt. Right? We remember that. Yeah. Which seemed to be the only nation strong enough to protect Judah against the mighty Assyrians. Sure. So in this sense, Rabshakeh is speaking the truth when he says, you know, you totally should just be defeated or give up or make an alliance or whatever. Right. He's speaking the truth, but from a different perspective, like not in a godly perspective, so to speak. Right. Because within canon, God wanted Judah to have no confidence in Egypt at all, but Rabshakeh isn't saying all of that stuff and isn't doing this to bring Judah to a firm trust in God. He does it to completely demoralize Judah and drive them to despair. Sure. So that was pointed out.
Rabshakeh was the messenger from the Assyrians? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I couldn't remember exactly.
No, that's fine. So he was saying all this stuff, and like 3/4 of what he said actually fell in line with God's message. Right. As according to Isaiah. But it was from a completely different perspective and for entirely different reasons, which made his message not correct.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
According to the Bible.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right.
According to the Bible.
Right.
So then Rabshakeh speaks against Judah's trust in God. And in verse 7b, it says, "Isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, 'You must worship before this altar'?" So Rabshakeh knew that King Hezekiah had implemented broad reforms in Judah, including the removal of the quote-unquote high places.
Yeah.
And we read about that in 2 Kings chapter 18 as well.
Sure.
Okay. And I remember in 2 Kings, you and I are like, that's weird. Why are they getting rid of all of the different places to worship? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You know, making
it
them
even
all...
seems like, and maybe I'm maybe I'm not associating this correctly, but like back when Moses was around and we were talking about Moses and everything, there was a lot of quote unquote high places.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would build altars on the tops of mountains and things like that. And that feels like that's part of what the high places were. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting that now, you know, it's godliness to build those, but then it's also godliness to get rid of them.
Right.
So it's a very interesting.
And that is correct.
Okay.
And it is an interesting dichotomy. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So the high places were spots of individual worship, which were prohibited by God's law in Leviticus. So at first they were building them. I'm trying to think how I'm trying to say this. At first they were building them because they were traveling and it made it easier.
Okay.
As they were spreading out to be able to, you know, hit up a place.
Yeah.
But now they're being used incorrectly, so that's why he's getting rid of them.
I see.
And also it was allowing people to be lazy and not come into town.
I see. Okay.
So
all right.
That's the reasoning for that. So Israel was commanded to bring their sacrifices to the official center for sacrifice, the tabernacle, or later the temple, within the city. In the pagan world at that time, it was customary to offer sacrifice wherever one pleased. Altars would customarily be built on high hills in forested areas or at other special places.
Okay.
That practice was fine during the time of the patriarchs, so during the time of kings.
Okay, sure.
But now God regarded sacrifice at high places as an offense, so Hezekiah took away the high places and the altars, demanding that people come to the temple in Jerusalem to offer sacrifice. So what's happening here is basically as man changes their mind, they say that God changed his mind.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and it sounds to me, I mean, I'm probably a little off base with this, but like Hezekiah being the king, wanting them to come into town to worship at the temple sounds like a monetary thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you want
taxes.
Them, right. Yeah. It gives you the opportunity for them to shop in town, to do this, that, and the other in town. Whereas if they're not coming into town, they're doing it without any of those, you know, fees that they would, or, you know, services that they would buy and things like that. So it sounds a little self-serving.
It was. And think about it too. Enacting some kind of major change like this shows that whether it's true or not, we are making a change in how we practice our faith. And the change itself shows our attempt to be closer to God.
Right.
Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. He's enacting this, and the very shaking up, like a new leader always comes in, right? And he does something new.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That was his thing.
Okay.
So he did that for many different reasons, but said it was because that's what God wanted.
Sure. Yeah.
So, do we believe him? I don't know.
Right. I'm just saying there could be many reasons for that. That's all.
Sure. But is God came down and told him so one of them? Doubt it.
Right.
Just because, you know, I don't believe in that.
Right. Well, and also even in the book, you know, God's not talking directly to Hezekiah. He's talking to Isaiah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's not really, we know that God didn't tell Hezekiah this probably.
Right.
If anything, Isaiah was like, we need to do it this way. And of course, a preacher type person or whatever prophet is going to be like, yeah, bring him into town. Then he gets more exposure to people that he can talk to. And
exactly.
You know, it makes sense.
Yeah. It was just a really smart act that they put together.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yep.
Moving into chapter 38, Isaiah made the announcement to Hezekiah. Mm-hmm. You know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like you're going to die.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So this happened at the time of the Assyrian invasion of Judah because Jerusalem had not been delivered from the Assyrian threat yet.
Oh, so he fell sick during the invasion.
This likely happened between 703 BC and 712 BC.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's because you told me that the records show that they were there surrounding Jerusalem as early as like 701. Mm-hmm. So this went on for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Or, well, no, so that would be later. 701 would have been later than 712 or 70. So
yeah.
They were there for, backwards. I was going the wrong way. But it's still, even if we go all the way back to 712, that's like 11 years that they
held out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
That's amazing. Kind of.
Right.
Right. So Hezekiah was 39 years old when he learned that he would be dying soon.
Ah.
Yeah. So I thought that was like, wow, pretty amazing.
Yeah, I can't imagine being 39 and finding that out. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, 15 years later, he dies and his son takes over, and his son was a little shit who was no good, but his son took over at the age of 12.
Right. Yeah.
And that was bad.
Yeah.
So that is really all I have. I just tried to take some interesting things that we hadn't covered already.
Sure.
From 2 Kings and Chronicles.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I again, we kind of struggled coming up with new material to talk about during these episodes because this is something that's a rehashed subject that we already talked about in 2 Kings.
And Chronicles.
So here we are again with the same information. Mm-hmm. But there was some new stuff that I learned today. Sure. I appreciate it. I'm definitely looking up that battle shit. That's in the annals and all that crap. Mm-hmm. So that sounds really cool. But that being said, I think that's all we have for today. Mm-hmm. So that was our Q&A for this Saturday. I don't think I was supposed to say that, was I?
You were not.
So what was it, darling?
Q&A Saturday.
All right. So we'll be back with a wrap-up tomorrow. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Before the wrap-up, we have... What do we have?
We have a Patreon.
Then I'll get the wrap-up. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be back on Monday with...
Isaiah chapter 39.
All right. We'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep. We have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegiousdiscourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.